Good morning, everyone. We're so glad you guys came out this morning and to join us at Lifespring. We're going to go ahead and begin our worship. And you'll notice, I wanted to give a quick little plug. We actually do our set list a couple weeks in advance, but today, it's no coincidence that all of our songs are about hope or how great God is. So I want y'all to just put everything that you brought into this service, everything from this week, everything from the media, put it aside, and we're just going to focus on how great God is.
Can you make a list of these and just whatever, we'll talk about it on Friday or whatever?
I know I need to see that card.
Tripod. And now a fire sticker logo.
What?
Fire sticker logo. Because I can stream this live onto that TV. Because this camera that's like 30 bucks. To be able to stream on KTV live.
There's only one God who can save the day. So clear the stage, prepare the way. Heaven and earth are singing. Glory, hallelujah. Let the whole world sing. The greatness of our God in all today's big idea for our service says, we will let our vision impact our future. So one more time, we will let our vision impact our future. So go ahead and take a second to greet those around you. I would say shake a hand and hug a neck, but maybe some fist bumps and some elbow bumps we'll have to do today. So y'all go ahead. Your seats, there's going to be an offering video on the screen in just a second. Offerings. So if you guys will grab the black baskets at the end of your rows, you can pass them on down. I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And I can say from firsthand experience being in this church and being someone who works in the community, your tithes and offerings, they don't just go to this building, which some of them do, but we use everything that comes in to bless those around us, whether it be people that come in by providing services like kids ministries, or technology that you see right here. But we also partner with a lot of community members and programs, and our tithes and offerings help us to do more of that. So if you are unable to give today but you would like to, there are a couple other ways that you can give. There's a box on the back wall labeled offering. You can give at any time. There's also an online way you can give at our website, lifespring03152020A. You can set up automatic draft that way as well. So if you guys would go ahead and stand with us, we're going to continue in our worship. This is called Yes, I Will. Fail me now, you won't fail me now. you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Oh yes, I will. I can know one thing. Same God that never fails, will not fail me now. He won't fail me now. Never fail. The same God has never failed. Working all things out. Working all things out. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy when my heart is heavy for all my days. Oh yes, I will. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. Nothing can stand against. I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. And I choose to praise, to glorify the name of all names. That nothing can stand against. Oh yes, I will lift you high in the lowest valley. Yes, I will bless your name. Oh yes, I will sing for joy. My heart is heavy for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Oh yes, I will for all my days. Yes, I will. So I want to share a little story about this song with you guys. Yesterday, there were a few of us from the church that got to volunteer at a club called Sunshine Club, and it's for special needs adults. They meet at First Baptist like twice a month, I think. But for them, it's kind of like a church service because there's not a lot of churches that offer special needs classes, or it's kind of on their level. So this is a whole club where they can come. It's put on by a church, and it's where they learn the gospel, worship songs. And yesterday they were focusing on Psalm 23, and you know that's one of my favorite psalms. I read it last week when we sang this song, and it really got to me because these innocent people that don't have a lot of cognitive capacity, they were able to catch on to that idea so quickly that we are the sheep and God is the shepherd. And this is one of those songs that makes me think of that. So I just want to encourage y'all with that today, that it's simple. You don't have to understand every word that the Bible says to get the main idea that God loves us and He wants to protect us, and He's there for us, and He's going to come after us and find us. So even in the valley when we don't feel Him, can't see where He is, we don't see any evidence of it, I just want to encourage you to understand it's not that hard. All you have to do is seek after Him, and He's going to come find you. So this is called Valley. When God, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you that you will follow us and that you go before us and you prepare a table and that we don't have any reason to be scared. We don't have any reason to doubt you. And all you've done time after time is show us you love us, you protect us, and you're there for us. And I just pray that you would help us to remember that you would help us to hold on to that today. And I just pray for the rest of the service that you would keep moving in this place and that your spirit would be on us. We love you and thank you in your name, amen.
All right, our elementary class and our deep end class, our 5th through 8th graders, you are dismissed as well. So you guys go on back and have a good time. And hey, good morning. Wasn't sure what kind of crowd we were going to have today, but if you are not able to be here and you're watching online, we know that you can still worship and you can still hear from the Word. And if you are here today, man, it is good to be in the house of the Lord. Amen? Amen. So we just want to welcome everybody. We want to continue to focus on being who God has called us to be. And I've asked this question a few weeks because of our series right now that we're going through, which is DNA. But how many of you are like reality TV, not even reality TV, but like crime show fanatics? Like you love a good CSI episode, you love a good Law and Order, SVU, whatever. There's all kinds of good ones out there. I enjoy good shows, man. There's one called FBI right now that I like to record and watch and different ones. And it's always interesting. There was one real life one that, I watched like a documentary on A&E or something like that. And I remember being blown away in high school, thinking about the science and how things work. And this criminal, way back in the day, got caught by leaving chewing gum at the scene of the crime. Now, how many of you, your first thought is, wait a second, if you're dumb enough to commit a crime in the first place, that's not great, but to spit out your gum at the scene of the crime, like that's crazy. But what they ended up doing was they took the gum and they were able to get the DNA and then they were able to get the mold of his teeth imprints in the gum. And then later on went and found him. So you just never know how DNA can work and how these things can happen and what can lead to them going and capturing you and getting you, and which is just crazy to think about the world we live in. So DNA, it's a real thing, obviously, and we've been talking about the spiritual side of that and how God uses his DNA inside of us once we come to know Jesus, once we accept him, and what that looks like. This is the year 2020. 2020 has been a weird start, right? It's like craziness and chaos and all kinds of things happening here in the first quarter. We're only in quarter one, right? We still got a lot of year left to live and be a part of. But in this year 2020, and if you think of the number 2020, what words come to mind? And we can go ahead and I want you to say this.
Vision.
Eyesight, clarity, redo. How many of us needed a redo this year, right? 2020, amen, man. Let's all raise our hands on that. I heard things like clarity. I heard things like vision. I don't think I actually heard that one, but I'm saying that one because that goes with the sermon today, okay? But for 2020, I want you to focus on 2 words today, and that is vision and clarity. We've been looking a lot this first few weeks of this series on kind of our past, like kind of where we come from. Like you look at where you come from to see where you've been and how God uses our lives and our heritage and our history to lead us and to guide us. And today we're going to take the focus from who God is and what he's done in our lives and what he's done by sending his son in the past. Today we're going to take it and say, hey, let's use this vision, let's use this clarity to see about where we're headed, about where we're going. Last week especially, we were able to highlight and focus on a lot of things about our church and what God's doing and where we've been. And it's been so awesome to see how he's at work in this. I want to read this quote to you. The DNA of our vision helps us imagine what can be in the future, to visualize what a community that embodies our mission and values would look like. I want you to think about this concept of vision. I want you to think about this concept of the DNA of Christ taking us where we need to go. But there's one major problem. Does anybody in the house this morning have 20/20 vision, like without glasses or contact? Yeah, you got it? Nice. What's that?
I said, good by God. I've been going to.
There you go. So now he's got that 20/20 clear. How many of you need the aid of glasses or contacts or whatever? Okay, right? So you're going to relate to this very, very next point, very big time. So we like to give you kind of the intro. Hey, today's about vision. Today's about clarity. It's about knowing where we're headed, where you're going as a Christ follower, where we're going as the church. The problem that happens a lot of times is a thing that some of us struggle with or some of us have, and that's called blurry vision. Man, you ever tried to like read that chart and you're just like, can I take 2 steps forward, please? You know, can you bring that in a little closer? I've gotten to a point sometimes where I'll have to literally, like I'm so computer oriented and screen oriented. If someone gives me something to read, I'm kind of like, I'll take a picture of it so I can like zoom in. No one else, just me, okay. But like we need it to be as clear as possible. We need that clear vision, but sometimes things can get blurry. We're gonna look at 2 main concepts that can really blur our vision. And I want everything we talk about for the next 10, 15, 20 minutes, I want everything that we talk about for you to funnel it through these 3 aspects, okay? You ready? You're gonna have to remember this or write this down. But we're gonna look at the difference between it being God-appointed, self-appointed, or others appointed. All right? Let's say those together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. God appointed, self-appointed, others appointed, right? We're going to look at when it comes to God's vision, when it comes to where he wants us to go. Are we receiving this from God? Your attitude, your actions, your brain, everything that goes into you of who you are, the very steps you take, the way you handled today, the way you handled yesterday, is it appointed by God? Is it self-appointed, or is it others appointed? We're going to look at that. We're looking at one short verse today. It's from Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. And this is a popular verse. It talks about vision. It's something that really gives us a clear statement of what vision should look like. And this is what it says. Write the vision. These are instructions to Habakkuk himself. Write the vision. Make it plain on tablets so he may run who reads it. Make it plain on tablets so he may run who reads it. Habakkuk's revelation from God wasn't just for himself. It wasn't just for him to have this vision and to have this statement and to keep that to himself. It was for others. It was for other people to see it. And so in order for other people to see it, to be able to grasp it, to be able to put into action, it had to be clear. We're going to just be real honest today. We are that way every week. But how many of you have a hard time, like, you complicate things? Something that can be kind of simple. Man, I realized this one day. I was talking to the kids, 7-year-old, 3-year-old, and I'm just like, hey, this is the blah, 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 blah. And Hope kind of, that sweet wife, like, honey. I'm like, yeah, babe, what? I'm trying to give instructions here. We're trying to have a moment. What's up? What do you need? Honey, I have no clue what you're saying, so I really don't think they understand either. And I was like, that wasn't very clear. You're right. Let me figure this out. Like, we must, if we want to get something, if we're going to give instructions or if we're going to want someone to do something, whatever, it's got to be clear. Man, when God gives us vision, when it's a vision from God, remember, we're looking at, is it God appointed? Is it self-appointed, or is it others appointed? When it is God appointed, when it is God's vision, when it is God's direction in your life, he will make it clear. Now, you may have to study it. You may have to learn more about it. You may have to research more about it. You may have to dig deeper into his word. You may have to talk to people about it. One of the greatest things, greatest joys in my ministry and my calling is when people will come to me and we'll talk, or we'll just talk about life or specific counseling or a specific issue or whatever. And then when you start to see that light kind of go off, like, man, I read this and I don't understand this, or can you help me process this? And we'll pray about it, we'll talk about it, and then all of a sudden be like, wow, I now see what God is telling me. I see what God is wanting to do in my life. And that light, that light bulb kind of goes off, and it's this really awesome moment. With Habakkuk specifically, I want you to think about this. Those who read this vision that God gave Habakkuk, they had to make rapid progress. He says, when they read it, I want them to run. I want them to put what I'm giving you, what I'm calling you to do in action. I want you to make it to where people can go and it can be very practical, that he may run who reads it. It doesn't say that he who runs may read it. Man, sometimes we're just running, right? And we're just running, we're like, read something like, okay, yeah, that sounds good. No, he wants this reading, this vision, this God-appointed vision to Habakkuk to spring people into action, to put them into action to where they're going to run and do what God has called them to do. The running aspect comes from activity and progress. Man, I pray as a church and as individuals and as families that are represented here today, live and online and everywhere, I pray that we're saying, God, I'm moving a lot. My life takes me in a lot of directions, but today I'm going to commit to saying, only if it's from you will I go that direction. When I know that you're calling me here, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with everything I have. Here's a quote from a scholar named Brandon O'Brien, and it's a really, really powerful thing. I'm going to read it twice. It's so good. You ever read something and you're just like, that's so good, you got to read it again? Or you say something, you got to say it again? I'm going to repeat this twice because of how powerful this statement is. And this is what it says. If reason changes our minds, imagination changes our hearts. Touching the imagination can inspire us with a vision of God's reality that will compel us to act. Man, look to someone around you and say, If reason changes our minds, imagination changes our hearts. Touching the imagination can inspire us with a vision of God's reality that will compel us to act. Man, I pray, and my hopes, my prayers, I pray that we are so in tune with who God is in our lives, that we are so in tune with his vision of where he wants us to go, that we cannot help but to spring into action. We cannot help but to move forward. Now, this says the reason, the mind, it can give us kind of an idea, it can give us concepts, it can give us things, which is good, but what takes into action is when it becomes the heart, man, when it comes to something that you really want to be a part of, and you really have buy-in and that kind of thing. I want to kind of give a super practical, realistic Lifespring example of the difference between an idea. And remember, an idea, a dream we could have, it could be others appointed, it could be self-appointed. Those are the ones we want to just kind of filter and say, wait a second, God, are you telling me to do this? Or am I letting pressures of others tell me to do this? Or am I letting my own desires kind of steer this boat? I'll give you a quick example. I read a blog, an article on a guy that felt called to be a writer. And he thought he was pretty good at it, and he didn't think he was. He's pretty skilled at it. But everybody in his circle, his family, his friends, his community, everybody around him would say, no, you're a preacher, man. You need to be a pastor. You should be a pastor. And he was just kind of like, I feel like God's leading me to be a writer, but all these people are telling me pastor. So guess what he ends up doing? He becomes a pastor. And the point of this blog, and this is where the others appointed dreams come in, is that he did something that was good. He wasn't a bad pastor. He didn't lead people astray. He didn't do anything wrong. He was a good pastor. It was working well for him, but it wasn't a God-appointed calling. It wasn't a God-appointed dream. It was others appointed. And what ended up happening is whenever he would be pastoring, and then whenever he'd have time to write, all of a sudden as he was writing, he would just experience all this joy. And he experienced all this purpose and things that even as good as it felt to help people as a pastor, all of a sudden he just felt different. In this blog, he was very honest, and he mentions the fact that he said, I started feeling guilty that I found myself trying to gear more towards writing than towards being a pastor. And what he ended up doing was praying. He said, God, help me with this. Like, I'm a pastor, it's going well, things are happening, but in my heart, I find the true joy. I connect with you more through this writing. And isn't it interesting where God sometimes, like, he tells us things, and then once he says it, you're kind of like, oh, I should have already known that, you know? So as he's asking God, he's like, God, what do I do? And guess what God tells him in his mind and spirit? Write. Be an author. Don't just please people. Don't just do what you feel like everybody else thinks you should do. Don't give in to others' appointed dream for your life. Give in to the God, the one that I've given you. You are an author. That is who you are. That is where you're going to find the greatest value. That's where you're going to help the most people. That's where you're going to bring the greatest joys to your own life and to others, is through the God-appointed dream that I have for you, which is to be an author. So he resigned. He disappointed people. He let people down, quote unquote. But he did his God-appointed vision in his dream, which was to write. See, we're going to have a lot of ideas. We're going to have a lot of what we think may be callings or missions in our lives. I want to give you a Lifespring example of a great idea compared to something led by vision and something led by God's vision. Not many years ago, probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had done our consultation through Carolina Ministries, and they helped us a lot. And they said, hey, one of the things that you need to get outside of these walls. You need to really go out and do some outreach, and you need to connect with people outside of here as strongly as you connect with people once they're inside of here. And so I just immediately, I'm going to tell you up front, it was a self-appointed vision. It was a self-appointed idea. It was something I thought of and probably gathered from other things or whatever, that I thought, oh, this would be a good idea, so we're just going to put it on the calendar, we're going to make it happen, we're going to find some leaders to lead it, we're going to do it. And this thing called Life Skills Day was kind of created. And this thing called adulting, and then we tried different names, different things. For a year, I thought, man, this is what we're supposed to do. This is going to happen. But it was just my idea. It was just a thought. It was just to get it on paper and to make it happen and to be able to do it. Now, I'm not just saying this because it was my idea, but the concept was awesome. The theory was great. If it would have happened, some of you are thinking, wow, how did it go, Nate? Guess what? It never went. It never happened because I believe God had something better. God had a more God-ordained vision, a God-ordained dream to see this thing come to play. So an idea never really took off because it was just an idea. Then you fast forward. About 6 months ago, man, God gave me the clearest. I was praying about 2020 coming up. I was praying about the direction that we were going to be headed. It was towards the halfway mark of last year, I believe. And I was praying about, man, our vision as a church, man, where family matters. You know, we want to connect you. We want to grow